Hello and welcome to a special Tech Unplugged videocast episode with Pure Storage. Today I'm pleased to welcome Murli Thirumale from Pure Storage, of course. And Murli, you're Vice President and General Manager in the Cloud Native division of Pure Storage. So welcome.
Delighted to be here, Max. Thank you.
So Murli, could you tell us what Pure Storage is announcing today?
Yeah, we have a bunch of exciting announcements, Max, at Kubecon. First and foremost, we're announcing the general availability of Portworx data services. This is PDS for short, is a database as a service platform that enables customers to operate and deploy and operate a bunch of modern data services all in the same way, which is, pretty amazing if you think about the variety of different ways people end up having to kind of deploy and manage and patch and upgrade databases. This will allow it all to be operated the same way. Kind of the one database platform to rule all these modern databases, if you will. Another one is, again, the general availability of our very popular Portworx backup product, but now available in a backup as a service. So Kubernetes backup as a service being launched and generally available. And again, something that is very, very basic, but available really in the form that customers are beginning to prefer to consume it as a service rather than as software. Deployable, of course, in the cloud and on-prem as well. And then the third thing is our flagship product, Portworx Enterprise, has a new release that is generally available with a number of very exciting improvements. 5G with IPv6 focus, the ability to support object, the ability to operate a hot flash tier, a fast tier with PX Fast. So a number of additions to make our production kind of deployment PX Enterprise product even better.
Well, that's a pretty comprehensive set of releases then. So Murli, what are these solutions solving in terms of customer challenges?
Yeah. Let's start with the challenges first, because you always start with the customer, which is a great place to start. So customers, as they go to deploy containerized applications now, obviously it's well known 80+% of customers in the large enterprise in particular are already or intend to deploy Kubernetes in the next couple of years. And when we say Kubernetes deployment and container deployment, we're talking about production deployment. This is really well beyond sort of the early phase of kind of trial deployments. We see many mission critical applications being deployed on containers and orchestrated with Kubernetes. So in this environment, as they enter production, a range of things that were less important in the very early days become a lot more important. And we've been involved with containers and Kubernetes right from the inception. Our company was founded in 2014, and now as part of Pure Storage, we continue to kind of be very, very active and a leader in this area. So the challenges that people see as they go into production really are about scale, right? How do we run containers at scale, and to run them at scale reliably? So there's a number of things that you have to kind of worry about that have to do with scale and reliability and availability of the data itself. The second one is really around protecting for issues that happen, right? I mean, the Kubernetes ecosystem, as you well know, Max, is changing rapidly, right? There's new releases in every part of the stack. Kubernetes itself, cloud, if you're running on cloud, whether it's the databases, it is Kafka or Postgres or Cassandra and Mongo, all of these things. If you look at that stack, there's a lot of churn going on. And so several times during deployments, people need to be able to revert back to some other version if there's some problem. So data protection, like it does in any maturing market, is very, very important. And then the third thing we're finding is that when people are trying to deploy operations at scale, now with the multitude of databases that are available, and I mentioned a number of them now, and there's modern databases, or each one has their own advantage and way of operating. and the way they're deployed is different. The way they're kind of upgraded is different. The way they're patched is different. And I think organizations are finding that when they're deploying these things, it becomes a real problem to manage all of that multitude of databases without having a lot of expertise. When they're already struggling to find Kubernetes expertise, cloud native expertise, cloud expertise, and now they have to kind of go get modern database expertise. And so what PDS tries to solve is really kind of find a single way of managing and operating and managing these databases, and so that there's uniformity and allows them to kind of focus on building out the application and ramping fast without having to kind of become experts in each of these various databases. So it's really a good way to summarize it is, as we enable Kubernetes to go into production fast and allow them to go service their developers, service their application needs in a rapid manner.
Okay. Yes, and there's another interesting point to that, is that you are enabling your organization to deploy Kubernetes in production and do that with the breadth of scope of enterprise services that you expect out of this kind of solution. But when you think about customers and their cloud native strategy, do you see some important things there, some kind of practical advice or thoughts, or maybe even thought leadership you would like to share with those organizations?
Yeah, I think what I would say is, we see sort of organizations going through this kind of 10, 12-year transition, right? And of course, in the early days, people really focused on infrastructure, making that infrastructure robust and available, but also very, very flexible, available on demand. And that's why you've seen a lot of people kind of going to public cloud and hybrid cloud strategies, or even kind of cloudifying their own private data centers. So, going to kind of a available on-demand, flexible, elastic infrastructure is something that has been happening for the last 10, 15 years. I think the action has moved now to not just kind of having availability, but operating fast, being able to, deploy applications fast. Speed is of essence in today's world. The fast are eating the slow. And so if you're just sort of taking too much time to deploy applications, if you're taking too much time to adapt to competitors, then you will lose the competitive advantage that your business has, that is provided by technology. And so again, this is the area where automation plays a big role. And that's kind of where containers have kind of come to the fore. So investing in your applications, you don't have to kind of do it all from 0 to 100 all at once, but focusing on the application areas that you need to move fast in, that are undergoing rapid change, that you want to empower your developers by deploying containers and technologies like Kubernetes in conjunction with things like cloud and hybrid cloud, really is a new direction. And I think it's been going on now for the last 3 to 5 years. What I also see happening is another thing, is people now are paying a lot more attention, not just to having stuff be flexible and fast, but also trying to mine their data and get smarter with their data. So data strategies is something that is fairly new, but something that is very significant. And you have significant companies like Uber, and of course the recent COVID pipeline with a lot of drug companies using data analysis. So data analysis and the ability to kind of extract information that is relevant and competitive to their company from both public information and private information, their own information, are the three trends we see. So, of course, continue to get cloudified your infrastructure. Second, move fast through automation with containers and Kubernetes. And then go mine your data by focusing on taking your data layer and paying special attention to that, are the three trends that we're seeing.
And that's really interesting, because it's really the way you're kind of categorizing that really shows how that meets and matches the overall vision that Pure Storage has, because that's what I hear, and that's what I also see when I'm talking with your colleagues from other division, be it Flash Array, Flash Blade, etc. So there's really a very strong consistency here in the approach. But moving
Yeah.
on to a next topic. Kubecon is right around the corner. It's actually in Valencia from the I think 18th, 16th to 19th of May. Can you tell us maybe a bit more here about what kind of trends you see right now in the cloud native space?
Yeah, there are some trends that are kind of typical of any emerging category that as it goes into production. One of the things that is definitely worth mentioning is security. Security is very important. It's top of mind for boards and then therefore for the rest of the organization. So security is always a hot topic, and there's always a lot of action and activity in security, even in the cloud native tier. Now, in addition, I think what we're seeing here is a focus on solutions that allow people to not just kind of support the DevOps engineer, but the transition from DevOps to production. So, we've talked about how do you automate not just the containers and the apps themselves, but to do it for all of the rest of the stack. So how do you automate data? How do you make data available everywhere, right? How do you ensure that the data is not just available, but if there is a failure somewhere, that you can flip over to another instance and that data is available there, immediately, right? So production kind of issues like very high availability, cross-zone protection of data, and the ability to sync data across multiple zones, the ability to run multi-cloud. Multi-cloud has become a big thing now because I think customers have realized that there's not a either or strategy. It's not going to be just one cloud or just going to be on their on-prem data center, but really a mixture of a number of places that they're going to run their applications. And some of that is because of geographical diversity needs, and some of that is because of sovereignty, data sovereignty needs. So things around how data is now going to be also automated and managed in a kind of a smarter way than just kind of hoping that the old infrastructure will keep up with it, is causing a lot of new opportunities. And the third one I talked about was a little earlier, was how do I manage all these different databases? So the proliferation of technology is a problem for many companies, and I think it's both an opportunity, but also how to manage it is an issue. And in particular, the variety of data sources, the variety of databases that developers are bringing for a variety of reasons now means that they have to become an expert in a lot of different technologies. And this is an area that customers are looking for solutions. So you asked about what are some of the trends. We found that 85% of customers or 82% of customers are really kind of worried about data protection, right? How do I protect data in the cloud native space? In addition, actually, 67% of them are pretty sure that their current solution is not going to meet their needs. And so they are particularly concerned that the solution they have does not work. So there's a number of these trends that are very important that we're seeing at Kubecon.
So that's a very comprehensive coverage, and thank you for that. The question I was about to ask you is how you think Pure Storage is preparing, to address those trends. But in fact, the trends that you were describing are kind of, I would say, and I'm not willing to be kind of apologetic, but the trends that you have described kind of perfectly match the capabilities and the kind of differentiators that Portworx has. So is there anything you would like to add as a closing comment, perhaps?
I think, what I would say is in particular in the cloud native space, like other emerging technology areas, enterprises are looking for partners who can be their partner, who can bring not just expertise, but solutions that actually anticipate their needs and are intuitive and help them, right? And look, there's a lot of vendors out there. It's a very competitive market, But I think what I would say, is that Pure Storage and Portworx in the area of cloud native has been in this market now since 2014, right? So we're not just a pioneer. We're actually somebody who has been working with enabling a lot of customers. And so I think the message is find your 2 or 3 cloud native partners that are going to make you successful in your end objective, versus just there to kind of position something that they have a true understanding of your needs, that they can help you look around the cloud native corner. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I think I pride our team on, I pride Pure Storage on, is not just being a disruptor, but being a person who can kind of help you succeed in your business as a customer. And so that's what I would say is something I'd love to kind of have customers remember, that we're here to help in your cloud native journey.
Well, Murli, I want to thank you so much for this discussion. Thank you for your expertise, for your enthusiasm. And to who's watching us, we thank you also for watching, and we hope to see you in another videocast episode. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Max.